Hi Cancer, welcome to your July 2020 Astro Alchemy reading. It's Rena here. So for those of you who are born under the sign of Cancer, happy birthday, even if you're listening in June, because I'm recording when the sun is still in Gemini. So to everybody, but in July, we still have some Cancerians that are going to have their solar return. And the big news for you is that we're having a black moon, which is the second new moon in a sign. I think it's under one sign or in 1 month, whatever, but it's both in Cancer. And this is at 28 degrees of Cancer. I'll talk about that in a minute, but it's the counterpart of the blue moon, the second full moon in a month. So I'm pretty pumped about this. I actually just checked, and it has to be in the same sign. And this is interesting because I was going to this one site, and they were talking about how the black moon, or the second new moon of a sign, is going to be the real fresh start, and that the first one is almost like a false start. I don't know that, because this was a few years ago when they were referring to a particular black moon, but I think because in this case the first of the new moons is actually a solar eclipse, that this may be slightly different, because that's a very potent new moon in and of itself. So I'm going to reserve judgment on whether there will be false starts at the first new moon, but I will say that I'm glad to hear that the black moon is considered a very potent time for change. So I will get to that in a bit. I want to do this chronologically. So as we begin the month of July, Saturn is going back into Capricorn. It had flirted with Aquarius and retrograded starting in May, and now on July 1st, at the very beginning of July, it is going back into your opposite sign. So ostensibly, this could actually fall in your 7th house of committed partnerships, and something that you have been working on with a partner is brought back into question, that it needs more work. So if you, during the transit of Saturn in your 7th house, if you have been dealing with relationship issues that you thought were completely settled, you might find that they are actually still in need of some reworking. The other thing, too, is that the 7th house can be legal matters, and this could also mean that something else has to be hashed out, ironed out. And this is also during a Mercury retrograde in your sign. So it is possible that something legal that also requires a document is going to be part of this, but not necessarily. I'm just saying that if you're working on something, Mercury goes direct on the 12th, and that would be like the best of all to be able to make sure that it still isn't fouled up. Although I will say that with Mercury relating to technological issues, I had my fair share before Mercury went retrograde. And even as I record this, it hasn't gone retrograde, and I've had to deal with those kinds of things. So, but Mercury might have been in its shadow at that point. Who knows? I just think that sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And if you have to sign documents during a Mercury retrograde, then by all means. On the 5th, we have a lunar eclipse at 13 degrees of Capricorn. And so this is in that 7th house. So your 7th house is seeing some action, seeing some triggers to it. And the lunar eclipse, coupled with Saturn re-entering into that sector, may kind of illustrate something for relationships that have been teetering on the edge. So this could be I don't want to say it's the final blow, but it could be something that is a very deep dive. The lunar eclipse can bring some sort of revelations to the surface. This can even be realizations on your end about your partner, and maybe like an aha moment, and maybe secrets are revealed. And what I mean by secrets, by the way, is not necessarily that your partner has been cheating on you for the last 5 years. Right now, some Cancer individuals may be like breaking out into hives for me even bringing up that scenario. But what I'm talking about is finding out that your partner went through some kind of trauma that he or she never told you about. And now you're kind of connecting the dots, and you realize why they acted the way that they did. I'll give you an example. Let's say I guess it doesn't have to be gender specific, but I'll just say, let's say you're a male Cancerian, and you find out that your wife was sexually abused when she was younger, and you've always felt like she doesn't like sex, or she just kind of shies away from it. She makes excuses. And now you understand. And the reason that it bothered you is you took it personally. And this is something that happens so very often, where people believe that they are to blame, or that there's something wrong with them when their partner is doing something that they don't like, or that they feel is depriving them of something, and they don't realize that there's more to the story. So these kinds of things are breakthroughs, okay? And I think that lunar eclipses are breakthroughs. Either you have a spiritual download in and of yourself, which is some kind of spiritual breakthrough that is coming through you, for you, by you, or via another person. And sometimes these things they can come out of nowhere, seem spontaneous, but it's all connected. It's like cause and effect. And this can be a release. I see lunar eclipses as a release time. I think of the Tower card in the tarot, and even though people fear that kind of thing, it brings with it this sense of illumination, and that can free us from the being bound by ignorance, if you will. One thing for Americans to realize, too, is that this is happening the day after the 4th of July. The 5th of July. Hey, can you imagine that? The 5th of July happening after the 4th of July. And I think that the United States may see some kind of, it's not, we're always having this never-ending story, if you will. But maybe this is going to be an end of a particular cycle. And that can feel very much like we have left a certain, period in history behind us. And we are moving on to bigger and better things. Because definitely the United States has been experiencing a lot of triggers in the last couple of years. Oh, to say nothing of the Pluto opposition for the last 12 years. But I'm talking about specifically with the eclipses and nodes in Cancer and Capricorn. So definitely you Cancerians can relate to that. So on the 12th, we have Mercury going direct at 5 degrees of Cancer in your sign, and you have been mulling something over, Cancer. Whether this is about your own behavior, I don't know, because this is first house stuff, and this can be about how you present yourself, how you carry yourself. I mean, because it's Mercury, this can just be in general in your life. The first house can be a catch-all transit house for anything new coming into your life. And the Mercury angle is simply you thinking about it. So, I mean, this can run the gamut of anything that you have been wanting to do in life. And like, do I really want to do that? Whether it's a relationship issue, do I really want to continue with this? Do I really want to start this? Or do I really want to end this? This can be about where you live. It could be anything. But you're thinking about it in terms of how it impacts you as an individual. Not, in other words, the first house is about the self. And with the recent North Node having been in that first house, Cancer people have had to take care of themselves for a change, because Cancers tend to be caretakers. Would you argue with me on that one? You're a cardinal sign, don't get it twisted, so you're not a complete pushover, but you are a water sign. You're about nurturing, and in the last couple of years, you have taken steps to kind of declare your autonomy. And I know of a particular person, Cancerian, who has done this in the form of ending a long time marriage. And it absolutely shocked me when I heard about this, because I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that this was happening. And I honestly believe that these two people would work it out. And so far, I haven't seen any signs that they are getting back together. And I mean, they were the last ones that I would think would do so. I do believe they're twin flames, and perhaps this is just part of their journey, is to separate so that they can, they were together since they were very young. And I think that might be one of the reasons that this particular Cancerian felt the need to, have some time alone. And I actually am in admiration of it, from the standpoint of being in a long-term relationship myself. I can just imagine how hard a decision and how brave that was, and especially for a Cancer person. So even though I felt sad about it, I still was inspired by it, because I think that there is always growth to be had when you go it alone, or even if you're, having an affair or what have you, and you think that you're going to a different person, you're still expanding, because you're making a big change in your life. So whatever is happening is going to bring new experiences and new information. So that's happening. Mars is in Aries all month long. And this is kind of a sleepy month in the sense that there's not many new transits occurring. Maybe that's a good thing, we need a little bit of a breather here. But Mars is in a fellow cardinal sign. For you, Cancer, Aries is your 10th house of career. So this is like all systems go for career matters. For some people, because you're like gung-ho, you may have to be careful not to step on toes, because the 10th house can be people in positions of authority, and you may be very ballsy right now. That's probably crude, isn't it? It seems like ballsy is a word that has gotten so used that we forget where it comes from. But you want to make sure that, because even if you're very ambitious, that you don't get obnoxious. due to ambition. And this may give you a lot of physical energy. So if this is you playing catch up, if you were on lockdown and now you're been released from your cell and you're kind of chomping at the bit to kind of get back into the fray, maybe this is indicative of that. So let's talk about that black moon at 28 degrees of Cancer. It happens to be on the 20th of July. And so what they say is that there's a black moon every 2.5 years or so. So this is actually going to be a cycle for you where whatever new beginning you have at this time, this will have a 2.5 year period of time between now and the next black moon. If I actually thought about it, I could have looked up when the next one is going to be, but you get the general gist of things. So that's very exciting. So set intentions for this of fairly longer range goals. I actually like the idea of a 2.5 year goal or a set of goals, because you know how they say the 5-year plan? Well, 5 years is actually quite a long period of time. And so many things can change that it almost seems like not worth the effort to make goals that far in the future. It almost seems like arrogant to do so. But 2.5 years, that's a little bit more doable in my book. For some of you, this will fall in your 12th house if you happen to be born. You would have to be born on the cusp of Leo for this to actually be the case. And so if you're born maybe on the, I don't know, it really does depend. Sometimes it can be as early. I think this year we're having a new moon on August 18th. So that seems, very early for Leo new moon. So I guess it would depend. You'd have to see if you're a 29 degree Cancer, when that would be for you. So most of you, this will be in the first house. So these are new beginnings for 2.5 years. So really, really think about that. And on the 22nd, the sun goes into Leo in that second house of earned income, cha-ching. And that is very nice. Let me see something. I want to see where Venus is. So Venus, I guess, is coming back. Oh, let's see when Venus gets out of its shadow. I'm assuming this will be sometime in July, because that might be indicative of forward movement of some sort. Actually, Venus went retrograde in May. So it was at 21 degrees of Gemini. So that date is actually occurring on the 29th of July. Well, I'll just say the 21 degrees. So let's say on the 30th that Venus is officially moving forward, and you've got the sun in that second house, and you're anticipating Venus going into Leo and then being in that second house. So the money situation should start to get hot and heavy come the end of July for you, Cancer. And so anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this, and happy birthday to all of you. If you would like a solar chart, or no, not solar chart, a solar return, for your solar return, I do natal chart interpretations, and I look at some of the important transits of the upcoming 12 months, and I do have a combination reading with a full-length tarot reading included for a special price. You can find all this information at the link below. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.